This is a seemingly ordinary photo, but this little girl named Heidi is actually standing at a murder scene. The victim was his mother, Loretta. Just a few days earlier, she was murdered inside this house, and traces still remained on the carpet. For over 40 years, Loretta's death remained a mystery, but nobody expected that. The truth was hidden all along in this seemingly ordinary photo. Hello everyone, welcome to the Eczema Investigation Bureau, (IMZEMA). Today, we will share a story spanning half a century about a sister searching for her brother. The story is full of twists and turns, and the ending is deeply moving. This will definitely be one of the most exciting, most touching, and most surprising cases you've seen. The story takes place in 1970. Loretta was a young, unmarried mother, raising her 4-year-old daughter alone, Heidi. Heidi was a smart and lively girl, living happily together in Price, Utah, until July 30th. All happiness ended abruptly. It was a typical summer night, hot and humid. Heidi said goodnight to her mother as usual and went to bed. But that was the last time he saw his mother. The next morning, the police received a report saying a homicide occurred at 468 East 4th Street. The victim was 23-year-old Loretta Jones, stabbed 17 times from behind, with 4 wounds to the chest, dying from blood loss, and had been assaulted before death. The only witness was 4-year-old Heidi, but because he was too young and traumatized, the police did not question him, instead sending him to his grandparents. As time passed, the case made little progress, and the killer remained free, turning into a cold case. And young Heidi lived with the pain of losing his mother. But as he grew older, one thought became clearer in his mind: that on the night Loretta was killed, he never heard his mother call for help. Although she was stabbed over 20 times, she would normally cry out and fight back, right? Later he finally understood that the reason his mother didn't call for help was likely one thing: she was protecting him. Heidi always felt guilty over his mother's death, though those around him told him to forget the past and look forward. He never forgot his mother died protecting him, while the killer went free. So he quietly made a promise to catch the killer and seek justice for his mother. He knew his mother would do anything for him, though he didn't realize this decision would change most of his life. Time reached 19th. Heidi was now 23, the same age his mother was when she died. Inspired by a TV show called Unsolved Mysteries, he wrote many letters. The Price Police Department and FBI hoped to reopen his mother's case, but all letters were ignored. Yet Heidi never gave up, persistently sending one letter after another. Because he believed, as long as someone remembered his mother's case, hope remained. Heidi kept going for many years, but never received any reply. Time flew by quickly, and it was now 2006. Approaching his 40th birthday, Heidi made a bold choice, deciding to leave everything behind, to return to Price for one purpose: to uncover the truth behind his mother's murder. But his grandmother didn't approve, thinking so many years had passed, and the killer might be dead. Yet Heidi returned home without hesitation. He knew he couldn't find peace for the rest of his life without answers. And so, just like that, after returning home, Heidi devoted most of his energy to investigating. But he wasn't a professional investigator and made little progress. On a day in 2009, Heidi posted on social media, complaining about his stolen car while mocking U.S. security. But just like that, his childhood friend David Brule saw the post and responded. Heidi later learned David became a local detective. Golly. So, he told David about his years-long search for his mother's killer, though the text here is garbled and will be omitted in translation. Therefore, David asked Heidi to recall every detail he could remember, no matter how small. Thus, Heidi's memory was pulled back 40 years to that night. After saying goodnight to his mother, he went to bed. Suddenly, he heard a thud, a sound like something falling. He quietly walked to the door and looked out through the keyhole, seeing something on the floor. At first, he thought it was just a pile of clothes, until he opened the door and found it was his mother, Loretta, was lying in a pool of blood, motionless. Being very young then, and so much time had passed, this is all Heidi could remember. David was deeply shocked hearing Heidi's story, unable to imagine how a 4-year-old seeing his mother's body must feel. Though hard to solve such an old case, he was moved by Heidi's persistence. He was determined to help this childhood friend find the truth. 39 years later, David reopened the investigation into the Loretta Jones case. Though expecting the case would be very difficult to solve, David never imagined it might end before it even began. Fans of cold case investigations know the first step is to review old files for missed clues. Next, analyze previous errors, likely limited by technology, so no useful evidence was extracted. Combining modern tech could offer breakthroughs. But David was told the files for Loretta's case had been lost over the years, including witness statements, physical evidence, photos, and forensic reports. All were gone. This was a devastating blow to David. His only sources were a few newspaper clippings, making this an almost impossible start. Fortunately, he reached the first officers on the scene. Though they were already retired, they still remembered the scene, recounting that upon entering, Loretta was lying sideways in blood, with no sign of forced entry, suggesting the killer was likely someone she knew. Third, he learned an important clue from the coroner. The coroner remembered the case because the victim's case was unusual, as Loretta had no defensive wounds. Rarely, in stabbings like this, victims have defensive wounds on their arms or elsewhere, because survival instincts cause them to fight back. The only reason Loretta had no such wounds was she didn't want to wake her sleeping daughter, worried the noise would cause the daughter to come out and get hurt too. This perfectly matched Heidi's memory that his mother didn't scream. It fits perfectly. It has to be said, motherly love is truly great, even surpassing the instinct to survive. Though the crime process was roughly understood, David still had no evidence or suspect leads. He could only tell Heidi that based on current evidence, solving the case is nearly impossible. We don't even have a crime scene photo. His words suddenly triggered Heidi. As it turned out, Heidi's grandmother kept a box containing items related to Loretta's case. He found the box, and inside, the most noticeable was a photo. It showed Heidi standing at the spot where his mother was killed, with faint traces of his mother's outline. Though the purpose of this photo is unknown, it was their only crime scene photo. Next to it was a briefing sheet, showing a man named Tom Eggleston and a police officer. David learned Tom was the only suspect in Loretta's case, detained by police for 3 months, but he was released for lack of evidence. While reviewing other reports, Tom was surprised to find that on the night of the crime, an attempted kidnapping happened 3 blocks from Heidi's home. At about 9:30 on July 30th, 1970, 10-year-old Lori Kukler was riding bikes with her brother outside their home. Her brother went inside first, and Lori rode alone for a while before planning to go home. At that moment, a man suddenly grabbed her from behind, covering her mouth. But Lori struggled desperately, and finally his hand slipped away. Then Lori screamed loudly. At that moment, the man abandoned her and ran off. Based on Laura's description, the man fled toward the same direction as Loretta's house, which David felt was no coincidence. The culprits in both cases were likely the same person. If so, Lori was the key witness. David began searching for contact info for Lori. Meanwhile, Heidi made a shocking discovery. In his grandmother's box, he found a notebook containing his grandmother's diary after the crime. Some entries recorded things Heidi said after the crime, though most he had forgotten. The first diary was written the day of the crime. It stated, Heidi said, "I had a nightmare. I heard footsteps. He told Mom, it'll kill you, then kill your daughter. Then I heard something fall. I went to the door, looked out the keyhole, and saw Tom was the one who killed my mom." When Heidi read this, long-buried memories began flashing in his mind. He started recalling parts of that night, vaguely remembering he had seen the killer, and his mother told him to stay in his room and not come out, but he couldn't recall who Tom really was. Meanwhile, David found Lori and asked her to recall that night. Though nearly 40 years had passed, Lori clearly remembered what happened and the suspect's appearance. Moore said the man had light brown hair, light-colored eyes, about 6 feet tall. Then David heard the most shocking thing. It turned out the police had summoned Lori to identify the suspect, taking her to the station to pick from a lineup. The man who tried to kidnap her was quickly identified by Lori, and that person was Tom Eggleston. Later, David learned from Loretta's sister that Tom once courted Loretta, but Loretta didn't like him and rejected him. In other words, Tom seemed to obsessively pursue Loretta, and combined with Heidi's notebook testimony, the truth was emerging. Though David believed he found the real killer, the problem was he had no evidence. There wasn't enough evidence to convict or even charge Tom, because years ago he was released for lack of proof, let alone now, right? After consulting experts, David believed DNA evidence was the only chance, and there was only one possible place where the killer's DNA might be found: Loretta's remains. David shared this idea with Heidi, fearing at first that Heidi would refuse, but Heidi said, "Give me a shovel. It'll dig with you." It was June 2016, nearly 50 years since the crime. Heidi knew this was his only and last chance. Price police publicly conducted the excavation, believing they were closer than ever to solving this 50-year-old mystery. It caused a huge stir, drawing widespread public attention, with everyone hoping for closure. However, it's important to note, the police did not disclose the suspect's identity, because Tom Eggleston was still alive. This protected the suspect's rights and avoided alerting the suspect. While everyone waited for DNA results, David received a phone call, marking the most dramatic moment in the case. The caller was a friend of the Loretta family, who told David, "I saw on TV you're reopening Loretta's case. I may have a lead you'll be interested in." David asked what kind of lead. He said, "Did you know Loretta wrote the killer's name before dying?" At first David didn't understand, so he asked for details. This person was staying at Loretta's mother's house, Heidi's grandmother's home. After the murder, he visited the crime scene and saw where Loretta fell. Near the bloodstain, someone had written letters in the blood with a finger. This shocked David deeply, prompting him to immediately think of their photo. He acts as default call. He urgently sent the photo to tech experts for enhanced analysis. Indeed, as the friend said, after enhancement, 2 letters became visible: T and O, the first 2 letters of Tom's name. 46 years ago, Loretta left her final clue before dying, believing someone would seek justice for her, but she never imagined that the killer could stay free for over 40 years. I know, some might ask now, if such evidence existed, How could police let the suspect go? Because all files were lost. We don't know if police knew about it. But even if they knew, it wouldn't be enough for a conviction. That said, victim messages like this are extremely rare, mostly seen in fiction. If you know other cases like this, please let me know in the comments. After a long wait, the DNA results finally came. But the results were disappointing. After so many years, no other DNA was found on Loretta's remains, dashing David and Heidi's last hope. The Loretta case caused a big sensation. Everyone was following it. If Tom Eggleston, then 76, was really the killer, he would watch the case closely. David decided to gamble, using last trick, a bluff. Police publicized on TV, claiming key evidence was found, hinting the killer was alive, soon to be brought to justice. Surprisingly, it worked. One day, the police got a call from someone claiming to be Tom Eggleston's neighbor, reporting that Tom came to him that day, asking him to look after his dog, because police were coming to arrest him. David knew Tom took the bait. He fitted the neighbor with a wiretap to gather evidence. At first, police doubted Tom's words, but the neighbor really did it. Original text garbled and untranslatable here.
Were you drunk?
I was drunk, yeah.
And the door closed, and then what?
I was thrown down for sex.
Okay. And that made you feel how?
Like I lost it. I cut her throat and I left.
46 years of waiting. Heidi grew from a motherless girl into a strong woman. Her life forever changed by her mother's tragedy, but she refused to let it go unsolved. In nearly half a century, she knocked on police doors again and again, often met with empty promises, facing not only time's cruel passage, bureaucratic coldness, lack of evidence, and countless dashed hopes and despair. But Heidi's persistence paid off in the end. Her never-give-up spirit led to the criminal's justice. Tom Eggleston was sentenced to 10 years to life. He will spend the rest of his life in prison. In court, Heidi finally fulfilled his promise to his mother. It wasn't about revenge, but the truest expression of love and family. Though it took the first half of his life, justice may be delayed, but it never fails to arrive. Love may endure a long night, but always greets the dawn. My mom mattered. My mom truly mattered. She meant the world to me. It's often about never give up. As long as there's hope, there's a chance.